I'm going to talk a little bit about digital, but not really bits and bytes, more about its impact in business. I've spent most of my working life living through Moore's Law. I've worked for Xerox, for IBM, for Lucent, for Dell, for T-Mobile, and latterly for Amazon. So I've seen it happening around me. Gordon Moore was the vice president of Intel, and in 1969 he said that the power of the microprocessor would double every 18 months. People understood what the word said, but they didn't understand their impact. And that has happened. When they look back in the year 2000, Moore was just about right. And it's continued, and it will continue for the next 10 years. So there's a couple of laws or theories that influence my view of how we've got to where we are with e-commerce, with digital. One is Moore's Law, and the other is the theory of evolution. So when I was at IBM as a young sales guy, we sold big mainframes. They would cover the size of this stage. We had a bunch of competitors, and they were called the bunch. It was the acronym Burroughs, Univac, NCR, Control Data, and Honeywell. They all disappeared as technology changes came through. And then we got into mid-range computing, and people like Digital came along. And then PCs, and it was Digital and Compaq. It was companies like Ashton Tate, Netscape, and they all disappeared as well. The pace of technology has been relentless, and it's very unforgiving indeed. I remember, to try to explain to you what Moore's Law means in business terms, we used to sell storage devices, big disks that attached to a mainframe. I remember the first disk I sold in 1978. It had on it half a gigabyte of storage. It would have been the size of the top of the platform there. Half a gigabyte of storage, and it cost $100,000. Now, if you go onto Amazon today, you will get that same capacity. In fact, you'll get 50 times that capacity on something the size of that nail, and it will cost you about $20. So that's what Moore's Law has done. It has brought this phenomenal reduction in size, this phenomenal increase in power, and it's starting to impact lots of other things. Move it forward into medical science. Think about the genome. The human genome was first sequenced back in 2007. In the early days, it took a month to do a full genome sequencing, and it cost about $200,000 or $300,000. Now you can sequence a genome in less than a day. You can do it in less than $1,000, and it will soon be as simple as having a blood test. So these are exciting developments, but for some companies, they can be terminal. And that brings me to Darwin. Darwin first expressed in his Origin of the Species in 1859 his theory of evolution. And what Darwin shows us is it's not the fastest or the strongest of the species that survive, it's the most adaptable. And just as it brings forward into business today, a business and its people need to be adaptable. They need to understand, they need to be open to, they need to be able to embrace change. And for those that don't, the effects are penal. Look at MySpace, the very first social network. Look at what's happening to BlackBerry. You heard earlier from Lily about Nokia. If you look back at the market capitalizations of Nokia and Apple at the time that top-selling phone was there, the market cap of Nokia was here, the market cap of Apple was there. And over the period of 7 or 8 years when the iPhone came out, they just reversed. Almost every piece of value that Nokia lost went to Apple. That happened over a period of about 5 years. And so that's what's happening out there today. So I've got 3 messages today. First of all, e-commerce is here, and it's going to continue. It's going to continue to get stronger. But I'm not concerned anymore about technology. I think technology will continue to improve, but the technology that we need to run our businesses is just about all here today. I think much more now about how people use it. It's about human behavior. If I look at the world of retail, where most of my companies operate, most traditional retailers are not growing, and any growth that they have is coming from their online offering. The online share of retail is going to be growing at double-digit for as far ahead as we can see. It will go from something like 6% of global retail a couple of years ago to approaching 15% within the next 2 or 3 years. And I think some of these numbers can be understated. What drives it? What's driven the internet and e-commerce is the ability to present customers with an infinitely greater selection and range than you can in a store. It's been driven by more aggressive prices, clearly, and it's been driven by very good availability, including very fast delivery. And underpinning it, the technology that underpins it has been the ubiquitous smartphone, which I'll talk about later. And when you contrast e-commerce to a traditional store business, the business model is advantaged. You don't have a store portfolio with 400, 500, 800 stores where you're paying rent and city taxes or property taxes. You don't have to manage inventory in each one of these places. You don't have attrition of 50% in your customer-facing staff. So it's very different. Online customers, online players know their customer. They know what they buy. They know what they like. And they know how to engage them. Let me then bring that down to what happens in ASOS and what is ASOS, because people often ask me this. Is it a fashion retailer? Is it a logistics business? Is it technology? You could ask these about Amazon as well. And the answer is it's all of the above. But we also have to create a lot of content. And we have to drive engagement via devices, via apps, via content, via creating a buzz, and by making sure that we have followers. So our business is fast fashion to 20-somethings. We've got about 11 million active customers globally, and as Lillian said, almost 100 million visits a month. But yet, although we think we're quite good at social, we're quite good at connecting, 41% of our customers still find us by word of mouth, by people talking about us. And this is where art meets science. So we need data, we need big data, we need first-class data scientists, we are great at analytics, but we also need to understand emotions as well and bring them both to play. And we create a core of loyal customers who then tell their friends about us, because young people don't absorb advertising. It doesn't build emotional engagement, and it's emotional engagement that contributes to loyalty. So our audiences get value out of content that is designed to meet their needs, and this builds a relationship with them. It deepens the emotional engagement. We have a community of people. We've got stylists. We solicit contributions from people. And when our customers contribute, it deepens their engagement. So to reach out to them, we have to provide value in the communication. It has to meet a practical need. What shall I wear to this wedding? Or for the young guys, are turn-ups in or out this season? What's cool this season? Or it's an emotional need we create to let people feel that they belong, to feel valued. And then the content is consumed by them. It adds value to their lives. And they both remember us and feel good about us. People do things because of how it makes them feel now or how they think it will make them feel in the future. So we're thriving in this world, and a lot of it is just getting the basics right. It's tagging photographs, it's understanding how to describe your products in Google, it's knowing which fonts that Google's robots find easier to crawl. On Instagram, we get 9 out of 10 of the top posts followed. And we do it not by putting up pictures of products, things that we're trying to sell. It's very often pictures of people's dogs, people's cats, people's lunch, and yet it's quirky, it gets people to engage with us. So you'll find that most e-commerce retailers are much further ahead than department stores in using content to help take customers down that purchase funnel.
You talked about it's all about the mobile now, but if you should kind of look ahead in regards of our headline today, Next 12, what do you see as the biggest game changer? Which kind of technology maybe for e-commerce?
I think everything around technology is still going to come back to the mobile. You know, you look at smartwatches and lots of other devices, they're all talking to the mobile to get refreshed, to get updated. And I think that, although I talked about Moore's Law earlier, our fingers aren't getting any smaller, our eyes aren't getting any better, so the mobile device that you have today is probably not going to get any smaller. It will just get better battery, a bit more powerful. So I think the device that we're looking at today is going to be the same size and shape of device that we'll look at in 10 years' time. You may have a slimmer device and you may just flip out a special piece of paper onto which you can project things, but I think fundamentally the technology that we need is here today. So part the technology and start thinking about how people are using it. And it goes back to my point about social, about mobile, and especially about young customers. Because today's young customers are the middle-aged customers in 20 years' time. And they're growing up with this mobile stuff. So it's not about it's only a young thing. These young things will become old mobile users in 30 years' time.
Let's turn a bit to digital content, and you touched upon that in your presentation. I know at ASOS you have these, you convene rotating focus groups, you can pick the range of your key demographics. As an advice, how can you actually use these tools to improve your business?
Well, I think every aspect of the internet is great because you don't need to go out and commission very expensive market research. You're getting real live feedback from your customers on an instantaneous basis. We can look at, if we put a new product up there and people look at it and rotate it and choose sizes and then don't add it to the basket, it's telling you something about the price of the product or whatever. So we've used different focus groups to give us feedback on particular styles or looking further ahead to what we're bringing in the new season's range. But actually the best feedback is just every second, every day, whether it's not putting the product in the basket, whether it's somebody complaining on Twitter to someone else about a bad delivery experience. The internet is beautiful for giving you real, live customer feedback.